There are a lot of things that you might have happen in your day that makes you feel like this day is ruined. I know for me, it's on those days when it just seems like things keep stacking on. Maybe you stub your toe. Maybe you walk to the freezer and the popsicle that you've been saving for yourself, man, your brother ate that thing, dude. He wasn't even thinking about you. I know for my daughter, Florence, who's not yet 2 years old, she'll be 2 in December. I know that there are a lot of things that ruin her day. Could start from not getting a snack in 0.2 seconds after she asked me for it. So for some reason, she'll be like, man, I need a snack. And I'm just like, hold on, Florence. 1 sec, I'm using the bathroom. I can't get you a snack right now. And her day is ruined. Or maybe it's when it's past her bedtime and she's just tired. And man, it just seems like her day is absolutely ruined. All it takes is her being a little bit tired to have a ruined day. Or maybe it's when Santi's had to listen to Let It Go by Elsa from Frozen 50 times in a day. And she wants to listen to it one more time in the car. And I say, Florence, no, we're going to listen to another song. That ruins her day. She loses it. And isn't it funny how there can be so many things in a day? Some are big deals, and some are really, really little. And it just seems like it can ruin our day. See, a lot of times, I think your day is ruined because you put all of your hope in something that was temporary. Maybe you put all of your hope in a friendship, and then suddenly they said you weren't cool enough for them anymore. So they went to go be friends with somebody else. That's a temporary friendship. Or maybe you're putting your hope in your brand new iPhone 15. Wait, is the 16 out yet? 16. The 16's out yet? Maybe you put your hope in your brand new iPhone 16 and you're letting your friend look at it and you've literally had it for 2 days and then they're like, on the floor. It's crushed. It's done. It's temporary. And you didn't even get Apple Care with it. Oh, no. Maybe you put your hope in really winning that game of Apex Legends, dude. Or a game of Fortnite, and you're like ready to go. You're having the best time. Someone takes you out super cheap, dude, and you rage quit. You throw your controller on the ground, and then your $100 controller is broken, and now you can't even play Fortnite anymore. Feel like day ruined. When we put all of our hope in something that's temporary, we end up very disappointed. And when I look in the Bible, sometimes I see people who have gone through things that are a much bigger deal than just not getting to listen to Let It Go. They go through really hard things. I think of someone, his name is Paul the Apostle. And literally at the end of his life, he was imprisoned for his faith. He was facing being executed for being a Christian. These prisons aren't just like what we think now. The prisons now would be like incredible in comparison to what Paul was in. Paul was in a freezing cold prison. There's literally sewage running through his cell. And it's in this jail cell that Paul writes the book of Philippians. And in the book of Philippians, it uses the word joy, uses the word habit, it uses the word praise God more than any other book that I read. And we're wondering, Paul has genuinely gone through things. How can he write all of this despite having a really bad day? Because sometimes I stub my toe and my whole day is ruined. Sometimes somebody says something that I don't like and my day is ruined. I think the key that we find to Christians being resilient, to having better days, is not that they live perfect lives. It's not that everything goes perfect for them. But it's that the thing they find their hope in isn't temporary. The thing they find their hope in is bigger than the small problem that they're going through right now. You see, I want you guys to be resilient. I don't want you guys to just have a small thing happen in your day and then your day is ruined. I don't want you to have one doubt or one prayer unanswered and suddenly you just don't believe in God anymore. I want you guys to be resilient. I want you guys a year from now, when you ask the question, what does it take to ruin my day? I want you to be able to say, it actually takes a lot to ruin my day. But the key to this is changing what you find your hope in. And as we're in our series, Jesus Is, we're going to read a story together. We're going to read a story about a guy who's having the ultimate bad day. And we're going to learn some things as Jesus is talking, as he's interacting with people. We're going to learn what we should place our hope in and how we can be resilient. The story that we're going to read is about a dude named Lazarus. And the interesting thing about this story is that even though it's a story about Lazarus, he doesn't say anything in it. Why? Because Lazarus is dead. Lazarus has had the ultimate bad day. Lazarus died. He can't talk. Here's the deal. On this day, no matter what you go through, as long as you're alive, you're never going to have a worse day than Lazarus is having. Because he died. It was the end of his life. It's the ultimate bad day. There's no hope after this bad day. Because death is final. And more than that, it says Lazarus was a friend of Jesus. When Jesus is talking about Lazarus, there's a couple words that the Bible uses for love. One is phileo and one is agape. Phileo it's a pretty close love. It's maybe a love that you have for a friend. But the word agape is like the highest form of love that you can talk about. It's like, I will sacrifice myself for this person. I will give anything for this person because I love them so much. Jesus used the word agape for Lazarus. They weren't just kind of friends. They were super close friends. And you see, Lazarus and his sisters, Martha and Mary, what they put their hope in was the fact that they had been disciples of Jesus. They knew Jesus. They knew that Jesus raised people from the dead before. They knew that Jesus healed people that were sick. But when they called Jesus for help, Lazarus is sick, he's dying. Jesus wasn't there. And by the time that Jesus shows up to the story, Lazarus has already been dead for 4 days. So he's not just having kind of a bad day. He's having a terrible day, because I imagine what he placed his hope in was, man, I hope Jesus shows up right now. I hope he shows up in the last quarter. There's a minute left, and he just heals him, and he gets up. But that's not the story that Jesus had planned. So here's some encouragement for you, just right off the rip, in a seemingly depressing story. No matter what kind of day you're having, as long as you're alive, you're not having as bad of a day as Lazarus is. He's having an ultimate bad day. So where we jump into the story is when Jesus finally shows up. He finally shows up to the family who has just experienced loss, and they're experiencing all this emotion. And we're going to jump in and we're going to read the first thing where Jesus is talking to Lazarus' sister, Martha. It starts in verse 21. Jesus rolls up. Martha says to Jesus, Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. I think there's 4 things that I want you to write down tonight. And I think that they're words from the Lord that are going to help you if you're going through a hard time right now, or maybe when you go through a hard time in the future. Maybe you're having a bad day. I think there's 4 statements that Jesus wants you to remember, that he wants you to know, that are going to help you in your bad time. And the first one is this. The first thing you need to tell yourself is, my expectation isn't reality. See, Martha was disappointed in Jesus. That's kind of a hard thing to say, right? Because Jesus is God. Jesus is ultimate. He made all of this. It's hard to talk about because sometimes maybe you feel like if you told your parents that you were disappointed with God, that it would be like this really big deal. Maybe you feel like you would get in trouble if you told your parents that you were disappointed in God. But the first thing we read here is Martha being really honest with Jesus and saying, Jesus, if you would have showed up, my brother wouldn't be dead. I'm disappointed, Jesus. I'm disappointed that he wasn't healed right away. Have you ever been disappointed in God? Have you ever prayed for something and it just didn't end up looking the way that you thought it was going to look? Have you ever asked him for something and at the end of the story, he just didn't give it to you? And you're just kind of thinking, man, God, I'm disappointed. Man, God, Santi talked about how much you love me last week. But I feel let down. I feel a little bit disappointed. God, this isn't looking like what I was expecting it to. If you've ever experienced that, or you're feeling that way right now, can I tell you something? God can handle that. God can handle you feeling a little bit disappointed in him, and instead of hiding it from him, he would rather you just talk to him about it. If this gives you permission to pray about that and say, hey, God, I'm a little bit disappointed. What do I do? Martha literally told him specifically, I'm disappointed. If you're feeling disappointed in God, that's okay. But let me encourage you tonight, just because you feel disappointed, it doesn't mean that he's not real. Just because you feel disappointed in something that you didn't get, it doesn't mean that he doesn't love you. And something we learn, Martha, right after she says, I'm disappointed, in verse 22, she says, but even now, I know that God will give you whatever you ask. Martha was disappointed that what it looked like didn't, or what she wanted it to look like didn't happen. But it did not deter her faith in Jesus. You see, disappointment can be dangerous because disappointment can push you away from God. If you don't keep disappointment in check, your disappointment can make you stop believing that God can do something. But let me tell you something right here, is even in her disappointment, Martha knew that she had seen too many things. She'd seen Jesus heal too many people for her to give up hope that he wasn't going to do something. No matter what disappointment you're going through, don't let it ruin your faith in God. But I think it is something that you need to hear as you're younger. You might learn something, and it's that you don't always get what you want. I think when you're a kid, sometimes you do get a lot of what you want. Your parents just kind of give you everything. But as you start to grow older and you have friendships and you start to interact with people that aren't your family and they don't know you, things don't look the way that you thought they were going to. And the hard reality of life is this, is that just because we're expecting something doesn't mean that it always becomes reality. Even more, just because you are expecting something, it doesn't mean that it's God's plan for it to happen. Why is this important? Because if your expectation is that something is going to happen, but what we just found out is what we want, we don't always get, you need to make sure that what you're putting your hope in is something that isn't going to be temporary, like we talked about earlier. You need to make sure that what you are putting your hope in is not an expectation that isn't rooted in reality, but you need to make sure that your hope is in an expectation that actually exists in this world, that's actually real. You see, sometimes things offer us counterfeit hope. Maybe we thought that we could have a really good day if we just crushed that test. Or maybe we thought we would have a really good day if we just nailed the trick that we were going to land in the skate park. Or maybe we thought we would have a really good day if we got home and our parents finally bought us that thing that we were hoping for. But the reality is all these things are slightly temporary. And if you're putting your faith in those, it's counterfeit hope. And the problem with counterfeit hope is that it overpromises and underdelivers. Counterfeit hope is always going to tell you, this is going to change your life. This is all you need to be okay today. But sometimes when you even get the thing that's counterfeit hope, it didn't even make you happy. I finally got those pair of Jordans, and guess what? I'm still sad because I'm still going through things. Finally got into that friend group, and you know what? I still feel insecure. I still feel like I'm not enough. See, sometimes there's things that are counterfeit hope, and counterfeit hope leaves you high and dry. So the first thing, if you want to live a resilient life, where small things don't ruin your day, is you need to understand that just because you had an expectation in your head, it doesn't mean that it has to happen. I think most of the time when I've had a bad day, it's because I had an expectation that was just totally unreasonable. I had an expectation that was unreasonable, and then it didn't happen because it was unreasonable, and I just had a bad day because of it. Not everything that you expect is going to happen. So maybe we should just put our hope in things that are real. Next time you're having a bad day, I want you to ask yourself, what did I put my hope in that didn't work out? What did I really want to happen that didn't work, and now I'm having a bad day because of it? And I can guarantee you, when you start looking at that and you start asking yourself that question, you're going to find the thing that you put your hope in. Maybe your parents didn't drive you to that party you wanted to hang out with your friends, and your day is ruined. That might be the thing that you're trying to find counterfeit hope in. Maybe the thing that has caused you the most strife with your family right now, with your parents, is you're like, Mom, I can't believe you're not letting me dress this way. Everyone at school's dressing this way, and now your day is ruined because she won't let you walk out of the house like that. Maybe you're trying to find your hope in the way that you dress, in the way people think you're going to look. Those things aren't guaranteed, and you need to know what you're finding your hope in now, so that way you can say, dude, I think I've been leaning on counterfeit hope. So ask yourself, why am I having a bad day? But after you've asked yourself on your bad day, you need to remind yourself with this. God is bigger than what I'm expecting. I still remember this Christmas. It's 2006. The Nintendo Wii had just been released. And now you're thinking, oh man, Santi is old. Santi is 7 years old. And the only thing he's ever wanted is to fight bad guys, pretending he has a real sword in his hand. Because the only way he's ever been able to play video games before is on a controller like this. And the thing I wanted most in life, I just wanted a Nintendo Wii for Christmas. And my parents had convinced me, ain't no way, brother, I'm not getting it for you. So I'm disappointed. My day's ruined. I'm like walking into Christmas like, well, man, I hope maybe I just don't get a pair of socks, or, man, I hope I still get something cool anyway. Maybe my parents will get me that book that I've been wanting, or maybe a new skateboard, I don't know. And I opened my eyes on Christmas morning, and not only was there a Nintendo Wii there, there's all the accessories for it, there was some games, And what I found out was that what I had been expecting, my parents went above and beyond with it. See, Martha put all of her expectation in the fact that Jesus would heal her brother. And then when she finds out that that wasn't going to happen, she puts her expectation in something else. Verse 23, Jesus told her, your brother will rise again. And she says, yes, I know. He will rise when everyone else rises at the last day. She says, I know my brother's going to rise in the resurrection. And what this means, there is this belief in Jewish time, even before Jesus, was that everyone who had died, at the end of time, God was going to bring them back to life. So when Martha found out that her first hope wasn't going to happen, she had to latch on to the very next thing, which was, well, my brother died, but at least at the end of time, he's going to raise back to life, and I'm going to see him again. I love Jesus' response to this because it's so encouraging for us. She says, yes, I know he's going to rise at the resurrection, but then Jesus looks at her and says, Martha, I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live even after dying. Everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never, ever die. Do you believe this, Martha? Yes, Lord, she told him. I've always believed you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one who has come into the world from God. Jesus is like, Martha, you're not getting it. You put your hope in an expectation that didn't happen, and then you put your hope in another expectation that's happening in the future. And he's saying, Martha, I am the thing that you're putting your hope in. Jesus is saying, I am the resurrection. The only reason the resurrection can happen is because I'm God and I'm going to make it happen. And for you, maybe you're really disappointed that your expectation didn't happen. And you keep going from counterfeit hope to counterfeit hope to counterfeit hope. Jesus tonight is looking at you and is saying, I made the thing that you're putting your hope in. I am your hope. You're hoping for an Xbox? I'm the only reason an Xbox exists. You're hoping for a relationship? I'm the only reason that a relationship exists. And what we find is that Jesus is bigger than the very thing that you're hoping for right now. And Jesus is the only reason that it exists in the first place. So we get so caught up in, oh my gosh, I didn't get this thing, that we never stop and ask the question, okay, if God didn't give it to me, then what do you think he's doing? The next time you're having a bad day and your counterfeit hope has let you down, I want you to stop. And I don't want you to look to your next counterfeit hope, which for me, when I'm having a bad day, I go to Instagram. When I'm having a bad day, I go and eat a bunch of junk food. When I'm having a bad day, I maybe do things that are unhealthy for me. Instead of continuing and going from counterfeit hope to counterfeit hope to counterfeit hope, stop, and you need to remember, God is bigger than my expectation. And what the story that he is writing is bigger than what I even want right now. And I want you to ask, okay, if everything's going wrong, what might God be doing? Because when everything's going wrong in my life, I have such a hard time trying to think about the good stuff that God could be doing. And all I think about is, oh man, and then this person said this. Oh man, yeah, and I bet you if I asked them about it, they'd probably say this, and they'd probably say that. And suddenly there's all these lies in my head. This person can't even speak for themselves because it's a fake conversation I'm having in my head. And instead of thinking about the good thing that God might be doing, I fall into this dark pit of everything that's going wrong. What you need to do is you need to remember, God is bigger than your expectation. God has bigger plans for your life than you do. So man, you're falling. What do they do in spy movies when they're falling? Or what does Batman do? He takes a hook and he yeets it up and it latches onto the wall and it catches him. You need to remember the good things that God is doing. You need to remember that he's bigger than what you're going through, and you need to start thinking about what he could do instead of what didn't happen. I remember being 17. I had my first real relationship. I wasn't a believer at the time. All of my hope was in this relationship working out. All of my hope was in this girl wanting to be with me, wanting to spend the rest of her life with me. And I was shattered when she broke up with me. It was the end of the world. Everything I'd put my hope in, gone. But after that, because of what I went through, because of the pain I went through from that breakup and that relationship, I met Jesus. And I learned that I could start putting my hope in him. And you know what? What I have now is incredible. 7 years, I've been married for like 5 years now. I have this wonderful daughter. I've got another kid on the way. I have the best relationship that I could have asked for. Imagine if I spent the last 7 years just thinking about this relationship that didn't work out. And I'm just stuck. And I never get to experience what God had for me because I'm stuck to what didn't happen. You need to remember that God's plan is bigger than yours. And you need to start looking ahead. Leave that in the past, man. Don't let it get stuck in your head. He's got something better. This doesn't change the fact that moving on from your disappointment can be kind of hard. Who has a hard time when they're disappointed? You can just be honest. You can raise your hand. I'm raising my hand because I have a hard time when I'm disappointed. When things don't go the way I want it to, it's a bummer. When you're having a hard time and you're having a hard time looking to what God might have for you, you need to remember that God brings empathy when I bring my emptiness. Verse 32 and 35, we're now moving from Martha to her sister, Mary. She's having such a hard time, she didn't even go to say hi to Jesus. She's so disappointed, she didn't even leave the house. Verse 32, when Mary arrived and saw Jesus, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. Same thing that Martha says. But this time she's saying it, literally weeping. She falls at the feet of Jesus, weeping her eyes out. When Jesus saw her weeping and saw the other people wailing with her, a deep anger welled up within him, and he was deeply troubled. Where have you put him? Talking about Lazarus. Where have you put his body? He asked them. They told him, Lord, come and see. And then verse 35, this is the shortest passage of scripture in the Bible. In the original language, it's just only 2 words. Jesus wept. When you're disappointed, sometimes you just feel really empty. Like, have you heard the term, I just feel deflated right now. Like, I was a balloon, it was filled up with air, I was so excited. Then someone popped me. I've got nothing in me anymore. I'm empty. And I think it's even worse when you feel empty and you go and tell someone about it and they're like, get over it. You're like, oh, gee, thanks. You're fine. You'll be okay. It's just a little thing. You probably hear that a lot. Why? Because you guys are experiencing things for the first time. A lot of the things you're experiencing right now, this is the first time you've ever experienced it. And to an adult, they're like, man, I've been through that so much. So they're not thinking it's a big deal. But for you, it's like the biggest deal you've ever been through. So they tell you, oh, you're fine. Dude, just even more deflated. Maybe someone's even said, man, that's what you get. You shouldn't have been doing that. Sometimes we feel like God is talking to us this way. And when we're disappointed in something, we don't even want to go to him. We want to stay in the house like Mary because we're scared that when we go to him and say, hey, we're disappointed, I wasn't expecting it to look this way, that he would be like, that's what you get for not believing in me. That's what you get for having a counterfeit hope. This could be further from the truth of how Jesus responds to you. You see, when God's children are hurting, he is hurting. When your heart hurts, his heart hurts too. How do I know this? Because Jesus rolls up. He knows that he's going to raise Lazarus from the dead. We haven't gone to that part of the story yet. My bad, spoilers. To be honest, it's been around for 2,000 years, so if you haven't read it yet, sorry. Jesus knows that he's going to raise him from the dead, and what is his reaction to death? What is his reaction to people hurting? Dude, he weeps. When you're crying because of your disappointment, God's response is also tears. I'm going to talk about death just for a second because some of you have experienced it. When God was faced with the death of his friend, it says that he got angry because he looks at what was never supposed to happen to humans. Death was not in God's plan for humanity. But because Satan tricked humanity, death entered the world. So every time you're at a funeral, every time that you're experiencing death and you're angry, why did this happen? Maybe you're even mad at God. Why did this happen? God is also mad, but he's mad at Satan for hurting his kids. You see, you might be mad at God for something that's happening in your life, but God is just bringing empathy to you. He's not telling you you're wrong. He's not kicking you when you're down. God is weeping with you. You need to learn to bring your emptiness to God. Did you know that that's what this place is for? We're here to worship God. It means I believe that he is in the room as not just when we're singing worship songs, not just when we're talking about his word, but when we're talking with each other. Like, Jesus is here. And maybe you feel like you can't bring your brokenness or your pain to youth. Because, no one else is going through hurting things. Man, they wouldn't understand what I'm going through. This is the very place you should be bringing things. Not everyone's going to understand, okay? Not everyone has gone through the things that you've been through. Maybe you've been through things that you shouldn't have had to go through at this age. Maybe you're hurting more than other people that you're sitting next to. I'll be honest, they're not going to understand yet. They might ignore you when you try and talk. They might distract you during service. They haven't been through that yet. They don't understand. But do you know who does is Jesus. Even right now, some of you, maybe this isn't hitting home with you. Maybe you're like, dude, I haven't been through these hard things. But I know, because Jesus put it on my heart to talk about it, I know that some of you are hurting in here. I know that some of you have been through hard things. Not everyone's going to understand, but Jesus will. Jesus will weep with you. Maybe during worship, you need to go talk to a leader. You need to bring your emptiness and you just need to share. I'm hurting, I'm empty, I don't have any air in me anymore. I don't have hope. Bring it to Jesus. He wants to help. He wants to bring his empathy. He wants to heal you. Maybe you don't need this right now, but you'll probably need it in the future. Remember, when you're hurting and you feel empty, Jesus loves you, and he wants you to bring your emptiness to him. Don't hide from him. The last thing, when I see failure, I'll listen for his voice. I want you to turn to the person next to you. Say, when I see failure, I'll listen for his voice. Verse 38. Yeah. Jesus was still angry as he arrived at the tomb, a cave with a stone rolled across its entrance. Okay, you guys don't have to say all of it right now. Roll the stone aside, Jesus told them. But Martha, the dead man's sister, protested, Lord, he has been dead for 4 days. The smell will be terrible, as if to say, dude, he's not just kind of dead. He's really dead. He's been dead for a long time. Jesus responded, "Didn't I tell you that you would see God's glory if you believe?" So they rolled the stone aside. Then Jesus looked up to heaven and said, "Father, thank you for hearing me. You always hear me, but I said it out loud for the sake of all these people standing here, so that they will believe you sent me." Then Jesus shouted, "Lazarus, come out." And the dead man came out, his hands and feet bound in grave clothes, his face wrapped in a headcloth. Jesus told them, "Unwrap him and let him go." Jesus is bigger than death. Death is the most hopeless thing that humanity has ever experienced. Because the day after somebody dies, there's not a tomorrow. There isn't another part of the story. That's the last page in the book. But what we see right here is that Jesus has conquered even death. The most hopeless thing humanity has ever experienced, Jesus brings hope to. So no matter how hopeless you are feeling, God is bigger than that thing. Jesus is bigger than that thing. God is bigger than the thing you failed at. God is bigger than the thing that's hurting your heart right now. God is bigger than the circumstance that you and your family are walking through. God is bigger than the feelings that you can't understand, that you can't control. God is bigger than even your wildest dreams. God is bigger than all of that. And when something looks impossible, when God's asked you to do something, or you're facing something really hard and you don't know what happens next, I want you to remember these words. Lazarus, come out. Why? Because it's going to remind you that if Jesus can raise somebody from the dead, he can raise the thing in your life back up. When your family's exploded and it doesn't seem like it's going to come back together again, when it seems like your family's dead, God can bring it back to life. When you've messed up so badly, maybe someone in here is even experiencing some legal trouble. Maybe you messed up so bad, you did something illegal, and you're like, my parents are never going to forgive me. I'm going to be in so much trouble. Jesus gives you a second chance. And when you feel like your life is over, God offers you another day. And maybe you're not going through it right now, but there will be a moment in time in your life when you think, man, I don't know if I can go on. And I want you to remember, Jesus gives me hope. I didn't find my hope in that thing. I find my hope in Jesus. And if he can raise somebody from the dead, he can help me right now. And I want you to remember that you can have faith and you can have big dreams. Your dreams are too small. You need to think bigger. God's got big plans for you. Someone doesn't think that they have a tomorrow. God has a tomorrow for you. Don't give up. I know it looks bad right now, but there's sun in the morning. There is a tomorrow. Not because everything's going to change and everything's going to fix, but because Jesus promised it. And Jesus will even raise a dead person back to life. Jesus is the thing I put my hope in, not a counterfeit. And with Jesus, anything is possible. Jesus can give you the very thing that you're trying to put your hope in right now. He can give it to you. But put your trust in him. Lord, I thank you that you give us hope, Father. Lord, I pray that if anyone is just going through something tough tonight, I think tonight was for them. It might not be everybody, God, but there's somebody. And they've got a crazy prayer request and they've stopped believing that it's going to change and they just think it's going to be this way forever. Lord, give them faith. Give them the kind of faith that says anything is possible with Jesus.